Okay, let's get started. We're right on time. Okay, so what is dashboarding in general? Okay, let me start with that. Now, dashboarding, you might have heard of it as a Tableau dashboard. Most of you know Tableau. So basically what we are trying to create is an interface, is a tool which in a certain way can automate our process of coding. Okay, and what can be the background of it? What can be the backend? The backend can be functions. For example, we've all worked with Python functions. For those of you who don't know what Python functions are basically blocks of code that make your recalling functions easier. If you want to do the same thing again and again with a similar kind of vision for one particular piece of code, one particular piece of data, then instead of writing that same piece of code again and again, we try to normalize this by creating a function which we can then call and use it over time. Okay, so just like that, if we could create functions that could identify dynamic interfaces, I'm repeating myself, if we could create functions that can identify dynamic interfaces, that would lead to dashboarding. Just like in Excel, we do those filters, we select a filter, we also filter what particular categories we want, and then the data gets filtered. That's exactly what dashboarding is, and that is something that I'm going to share with you today. I'll also show you a lot of things that will enhance your Jupyter Notebook capabilities, like how do you convert your Jupyter Notebook into a presentation, just like a PowerPoint slide. How do you give markdowns and make sure they look appropriate? How do you change their colors? How do you include links, videos, images inside your Jupyter notebooks to make it like a complete presentation that you can show to any of your data science leaders, whichever company you're working with? Okay, this is good for data science, data analysts, even some part of it data engineers, because it creates the dynamics of the entire process. Okay, is everyone ready? You guys can turn on your microphone, ask me questions anytime you want. There's absolutely no problem with that. You can also type in the text. Okay, everyone's ready? Oh, Preetham is there. Hi, Preetham. Awesome. So first things first, we first need to understand what are the dependencies of creating these dashboards. So the number one dependency that you have is IvyWidgets. Now, what is IvyWidgets? Just like we've seen a lot of libraries in Python, like pandas, like NumPy, like scikit-learn, and all of those 100,000 libraries that do exist in the pip software, there is another small software called IvyWidgets. Now, like I teach in general, I want to be very, very specific here. If I go to IvyWidgets documentation and I search this on Google, I get the first page, which is the most appropriate one for me to understand the library. Now, just giving you guys a quick heads up, I can teach you 10 different things in the IvyWidgets library, but I can never teach you as much as the IvyWidget holds for you. Okay, so if you want to get any reference, any understanding, anything more than what I will be taking you through today, you can definitely go through the IvyWidget library. Okay, first of all, what do you want to know about this library? How do I install it? Now you would see it's a very basic, simple installation. The only thing that you should know or you should have a background experience of is that these are command line terminal codes. Okay, the things that I've highlighted on the screen, these are command line codes. So you cannot execute them like normal Python code, but we all know how to execute terminal codes. What is that? Just put an exclamation mark in your Jupyter Notebook cell, and once you put the exclamation mark, it runs those piece of codes inside your terminal. So there are two ways to install IvyWidgets. One is this. I'll simply copy and paste this on the chat box for anyone if you want to execute whilst I am. And the other way is to use this, which I'm also sharing on the chat box. But this conda install only works with your Anaconda prompt. So what you have to do is to open a terminal inside your Jupyter Notebook or Jupyter Lab environment and then run this piece of code. Once you run this piece of code, for example, I run this here, you would see that it enabled my notebook extension. The first it did not find because it was conda, but the idea is that it enabled my Jupyter Notebook extension for IvyWidgets, which is the use case. Okay, so then I comment this back. and I see that Jupyter widgets, IvyWidgets is installed in my Jupyter Notebook. Okay, if you guys have any problems with the dependency or the understanding of installation, this is an entire piece of document which is made for you. Okay, you will understand where these things go wrong and what you need to change to make sure it works. Okay, but the simple idea is the two pieces of code that I shared with you on the chat, they will definitely help you to install in one go because they are as generalized as they can be. Okay, everyone understands till this point? Can we move forward? Guys online, everyone? Awesome. So another very quick thing for you to understand is that you can also change your themes, not just the two themes that you find on the top. Okay, there are these themes that you would find here in the command bar. There can be, let me just check, Jupyter Notebook theme. You'll find the theme somehow. Okay, I'm not in the Jupyter lab environment, otherwise I would have shown you, but you'll find the theme somewhere. Okay, but there are just two themes that are limited with the Jupyter Notebook that you use. But can you do something better? Yes, you can. There is another library called Jupyter Themes. If you want to go through the documentation again, by the way, I'll share this notebook with you. If you want to check out these documentations, just click on this, and once you click, you will go to the Jupyter Themes documentation on GitHub. And this guy will tell you, the builder, the inventor of Jupyter Themes, he's going to tell you how advanced themes can you set for your Jupyter Notebook. And you can see themes like this. This is not the Jupyter Notebook that you know of, right? You can actually convert your Jupyter Notebook into these themed notebooks, which are much, much better when you consider presentation of a Jupyter Notebook or sharing your work with everyone else across the world. Okay, and it tells you how do you install this. Pip install Jupyter Themes. Okay, again the similar formula, just copy this, put an exclamation, put it inside your Jupyter Notebook, and you will be able to install it. Okay, it will also give you the command line usage. Now how do you crack this command line usage? Let me show you that. Okay, so this is the command line usage that this guy has given on GitHub, and this is the description of these command line options. When I go through these command line options, I see this one list themes option, and I see the argument -L. How do I replicate these three options? Just follow around. Okay, JT is the Jupyter themes, list themes is for -L. So what do? I go back to my notebook, I create another cell, I write with an exclamation because this is supposed to be Jupyter, a command line terminal. I do a JT, which was this one. We just saw it here, JT from the command line usage. Then I put a -L, which is the command line option for listing the themes. Does everyone agree? I'm not trying to teach you to remember something. I'm trying to teach you to understand how you figure things out. Okay, that has always been my approach with everyone that I have taught till date. So let's try this out. When you try this out, you see that you have an available list of themes. Okay, now the next question is, how do I set a theme? Let's go back to the documentation. Can you see there would be something which would tell you that set a particular theme. Okay, and when I go down, I just want to figure out -T. Okay, select theme. Can you see the command line examples? It has an example of listing all the themes. It has an example of setting a particular theme. Now what do? I just copy this code. I go back to my Jupyter Notebook and I write this. Now instead of this particular theme, I can choose any of these themes. Okay, so let me choose any of these three themes. Let's say I pick Ocean 16 or one dot. Okay, I pick this theme up, I paste it, I attach an exclamation mark because this is a command line terminal, and I run this. Once I run this and this cell gets executed, you are not seeing any change in the Jupyter Notebook. But because these Jupyter Notebooks run on local host, you need to refresh them for any change to be applied. Let's try refreshing this. I reload my Jupyter Notebook, and now you see I have a brand new theme. Can everyone see the brand new theme in my Jupyter Notebook? Guys online, everyone? Yes or no? Yes. So now let me switch back to my theme, original theme. Okay, this theme does not look so good. How do I find that out? I go back to my Jupyter themes and I see there is another command line that this guy explained, and it says you can restore your default theme with this. Okay, so I copy and paste this code again. Just taking you through the process so you understand not to mug things up, but actually understand how things are working. So I again have this piece of code, normal cell. I run this cell, and this time it gives me an output which says reset CSS and font defaults in. I have resetted all. This basically means that it has reset. So I refresh once more. I reload my web page again, and you see I am back in my original Jupyter themes. Did everyone understand this? Guys online, how do we crack a particular problem? That's more important than actually crack the problem. Okay, so you will actually understand how to solve these problems. Guys online, can we move to the next thing? This is good, right? Awesome. So I have attached links to IvyWidgets if you do not want to actually go to Google and search for them. Okay, yes please. Okay, why are you guys saying yes please? Preetham and Mrinalini, if you can let me know. Yes please for. Okay, you can type it in the chat box. Anyway, so I've attached these documentation IvyWidgets docs, so you can just click on any of these and you will be able to land to the documentation. Also, how did I do this? Just double click on this and you will find the way I actually said these kind of things. So it looks like this, but actually it is like this. So this is a markdown cell. You all know what a markdown cell is. Hashtag for heading number 1, 4 times hashtag for 4 level heading. Then I put the term that I want to print on the screen. Then inside square brackets, I want to put something that is displayed on the screen. And just after that, inside a parenthesis, I give the link of the documentation. And once I run this cell, it just became a link which I click on. It goes to this particular link which was inside that. Okay, you can verify this. You will have this notebook anyway. Okay. The next steps is to install the necessary libraries. So pandas, obviously, because we're going to work with data frames. OS library, I'll show you why we're using it. It's basically the operating system library. It will help you get the files from your folders, etc., etc. IvyWidgets, obviously, because IvyWidgets is what this entire webinar is all about. And from IvyWidgets, I also import these things. Okay, I'll tell you what these things mean, but the idea is these are all widgets that will help you to make your program dynamic. Okay, also because I want to use these widgets, I'll also have to use a IPython display with which I'm going to use the HTML. Okay, you can just copy and paste this code. This can be your consistent code block that you copy and paste every time you use IvyWidgets. Okay, now for all of you who have taken a class from me, you know what these things are all about. This is basically for a data frame. In general, Python has a limitation of number of rows and columns it displays. If you want to change that limitation, you're going to use the pd.set option, where you can change the maximum number of rows to some value and the maximum number of columns to some value. Now, what is a layout? A layout is basically the cell layout for my IvyWidgets. You will see when I create IvyWidgets, I pass a layout. What these layouts are is to tell the IvyWidgets what would be my width and what would be my height of the widget. Okay. And another pandas options, which is the display float format. So a lot of times the data that you get, if it is in a float format, it can extend to 10, 20 data points after the decimal. Now, obviously we don't want that. What we want is for these formats to be limited to 2 decimal points. How do I set that? With this piece of code. Okay. For working with IvyWidgets, you also need these piece of code. You can just copy and paste from the notebook and work with it. These are a little complicated, but how do I get to know if I have to use this or not? Whenever I try to access a IvyWidget, my code would give me an error. I would copy and paste that code to Google, and this is the solution that I would get. So that is exactly how I got it. So you don't have to worry about remembering this. Okay, all the things that I teach, you don't have to worry about remembering it. Now, a few other code blocks that I want you guys to know and the possibility of their usage is that sometimes when you have a notebook, for all of you who are currently in a Jupyter notebook, you would see that your notebook does not look like mine. There will be some empty space on the left hand side and the right hand side of your notebook. Now, how do you change that? You use this piece of code again. You run this and you will see that your length of Jupyter notebook would increase to full. I'm copying and pasting this code online for all of you to look at it. Oh, I don't think it went well. Let me just show you how I found this piece of code in the first place. Okay, I would search increase the cell width of Jupyter notebook. I would go to Google and search this. The first thing that I get in return is this, and this is the piece of code that you want to copy and paste in one of your cells and run it. Okay, I'll share this link with you for you to get quick access to this. Okay, and you saw you do not have to remember or understand what these things mean. I still don't know what they mean. All I know is that I can just quickly write a Google search query. I can get to the Stack Overflow solution and I can copy and paste this, and that's exactly what you would do. Okay, next step. This is another piece of code which would be really helpful when you want to create presentations in a Jupyter Notebook, and I'll show you why. Once I run this cell, can you see a lot of things getting disappeared? Can you notice the changes? Do you observe anything particular, any particular change that has just happened? Let's see if anyone can crack that. When I run that cell, something disappeared. My code got smaller. What got disappeared? Anyone? Lots of you online, most of you I already know on the first name basis. Bidhan, not the cell designs. Imran, not the cell designs. Aditya is right when he says all the code cells. That's exactly what happened, guys. Wherever there was a code that I wrote, they all disappeared. And doesn't this look like a presentation that you can present to someone? You know, now you have the only things that you want to display are being displayed. The markdown cells, the outputs, the display things, only those. Nothing else gets displayed on the screen that you don't want. You know, when you want to display to a senior executive how you build your Python code, they are obviously not interested in the Python code. All they are interested is in the thing that you built. Okay, just show them the results and that's what they want. Okay, does everyone understand this? Yes or no? Just a second. Okay, now let me just click on this button again to show you all the code back. Now to start on the first basis, I have a few data frames that I would want to load. Okay, but we'll come to that later. But first, I'd like to start with the basics of IvyWidgets. Now, how do you understand these IvyWidgets? Just go to this IvyWidgets documentation and just go to this widget list. So you understand what kind of widgets are available for your usage. Okay, the first widget that I see is called an int slider. How do I use this int slider? I use it like this. Okay, let's not be confused about all of these things. We'll come back to that later. But the idea that holds here is that this is how I am replicating the same thing that I see in the documentation. You also have widgets.int slider. I just use that widgets.int slider from the internet, from the documentation. Nothing to memorize, nothing to remember. It's just that I'm using a documentation to build something. Okay, so let's run this. I create a variable temp which I then display on the screen. So can you see this int slider, and can you see the value increasing and decreasing based on the sliding that I'm doing? Doesn't this make it interactive, or in other words dynamic? Things that we have not seen till date in normal Python, right? Now how do you access the value? You simple do a temp dot value. This temp dot value will give the value, and you can see when you do this change again and you again access the value, you get the latest value. Everyone agrees? This is the basics, the first level of an IvyWidget. You have an integer slider, you use it, you get the value. Okay, now let's see if we can improve this. Now you can see this entire thing, I did nothing, I just copied this. I could have written it down obviously, but the idea is that you don't have to memorize anything. Okay, that's exactly what I want to teach you. How do you not memorize? Use the internet to get stuff done. Okay, we are not a hard disk, we are not a storage device, we are human brains. Okay, we've got brains to work things out. So that's how we're going to do things. I copied and pasted this entire code. I just named it to a variable and I changed certain values which satisfied my use case. Okay, how do you mention things? Now value is the default value, minimum is the starting point, maximum is the ending point, step size is the change, the bins, description is the name of your int slider, disabled continuous update, obviously you can set true or false, both would be right. Orientation horizontal, if you change this, it will change. Let me just show you. The horizontal orientation was this. If you change this, it changes to a vertical one. Okay, all of those things can be done. Okay, and you saw I set a name which came from my description. I set a minimum value which was 50. Okay, from the minimum I set a maximum value which was 1000. Obviously it would give me a difference of this, so let me just add this, and then I would have a much better value, and this will go to 1000. Just a second, why is that happening? Oh, the step size is 100, so I cannot obviously go to 1000. Okay, if I change the step size to be 50, then things would work. Okay, so you can just see I can go from 50 to 1000. Okay, and when I'm changing these values, my actual value is also changing. Okay, dynamic change. Everyone understands this basic building block of an integer slider of the IPy widget? Guys online, everyone? Yes, this is really cool, by the way. Okay, even I learned this after 1 year of experience in the Jupyter Notebook, and I almost use it daily. Okay, now let's try to build something useful. Okay, till now we've built something, but there's no usage out of it. There's no practical value. Let's say we build something very close to a calculator. Now currently I'm restricting the calculator to just an addition calculator, but you can see how I build these things. Okay, so I set variables first and second. I simply copy my widget. I just give them 3 parameters, which is the start point, the end point, and the step size. Once I get these two, I run this and I create a function. I create a function which takes first, which takes second, which are these two values from the widget, and then returns the sum of the numbers in the standard Python protocol printing format. Okay. Now I want to show you something interesting, which is called the interact of IPy widgets. You will see that this interact is what I imported from IPy widgets. From IPy widgets, I imported interact. Okay, everyone can see that from IPy widgets, I imported this interact. Now, I use the interact function, the interact library, to pass 3 things. What are the 3 things? First is the name of the function that I want to interact with. Second is the first input parameter of this function, and I equate it to my slider, to my widget. The third parameter is the second, which is this input for the adder function, and this second I equate with this widget. Did everyone understand this? How I'm using interact? I'm using interact by passing the function and the corresponding variable inputs to the function, which are linked to these widgets. Am I clear, guys? Yes or no? Everyone, right? If you don't understand, stop me at any point of time and ask. Okay, I'm just linking my function and the input that it's supposed to take and passing it to an interact. And once I do that, something surprising happens. Now I don't have to run this dot value cell anymore to see the value. Now I can simply change these values, and dynamically the sum of the numbers is also changing. I hope everyone can see that on the screen. So that is the usage of interact. Interact will make it actually dynamic. When you change the values in your widget, the values, the actual value below will also change dynamically. Okay, everyone understands this? This is very basic. Yeah, you can do it for multiplication. In fact, Pradipto, for you, a great idea that I can give you, which you can definitely try, is also create another widget which takes in an input as what calculator function you want to use. Multiplication, addition, division, subtraction. Okay, and then inside this function, you can actually use an if-else block to understand what input is given from the choosing widget. Okay, addition, subtraction, deletion, etc. And then based on that widget, you print something on the screen, which would be a complete calculator, a dynamic calculator for you. Okay, you can do the same. It's just the plus that I've used for adder. You can just do it for multiplication and it would still happen. Okay, you can check it out on the screen. Yes, Arpita, this file will be shared with you, but not through me. It will be shared by info@IvyProSchool, where you can submit your doubts, etc. I'll come to that. The entire piece of code and everything will be shared with you. Don't worry. Okay, now let me show you something more interesting with widgets. Okay, So one very important thing that these things do is to create address. Yes, understand adder is just a variable. No, adder is not just a variable, Pradipta. Adder is the function name. Addition operation is just a variable here because I can do subtraction, multiplication, etc. Okay, this is just a base that I showed you. You can go further. Now, something that I want to show you is that, for example, you have these different plots that you've done on Excel, on Tableau, on any other tool. Okay, and you want to display them as well inside your Jupyter Notebook, not outside. Okay, you want to put everything inside your Jupyter Notebook. What you can actually do is save those images inside your folder. Okay, then access those images. Okay, and after accessing those images, you can use the IPython display image library to actually display those with the interact function. Okay, now let me just break it down to you. Okay, I'm using this glob module to get the files in my folder. So I have this images folder. Inside this images folder, I have a lot of images with the starting name IM. I can even show you that. So this is my images folder. This is my base folder. I go to my images folder and I see image 1, image 2, image 3, and image 4 inside my folder. So that's exactly what I'm doing. Because glob works in my current working directory, I get to the images folder and I find all the images, all the files that start with the keyword IM. Once I do that, I split the file names so that I can directly access them. And you can see this is what my images look like. These are all the images that I could fetch from this folder: image1.jpg, image2.jpg, image3.png, image4.jpg. And I could access all of them. Okay. Now, when I have this list of images, what I can do next is use the interact that we just saw, create a function display image, which takes the files from the images. This is my images list. It has the list of images. It takes the files from the images. It attaches my base path, which is basically the root path users. You go to my datagasmic profile, you go to my documents, you go to my webinar, you go to my images folder. Once I go to that, I simply display using this image library that you see here, this image library, path plus files. Now, what does path plus files mean? Path is my root path, and files here is any of the files that I pick from images. So with that, I will be able to access a single image. I can also set the width and the height of my display section. Yes, Pradipto, you need to put the path here, which is the imgs/im star. Im star basically means whatever, anything can exist after the im. This is just kind of a string matching or a pattern matching that I'm doing here. Okay. So if everyone understands this interaction, once I run this, I get something like this. Okay, let me not zoom in so much. It looks scary. But this is the files. And now once I select these files, these are dynamic. Okay, I can select any of the files from my drop down and you would be able to see multiple images. Okay, you can select any image. So what can this help you with? This can actually help you with presenting multiple images at a time without writing any piece of code. This can be a sales summary. This can be a 2016 sale, 2017 sale, 18 sale, 19 sale, 20 sale, or different views. What was the sales? What was the revenue? What was the profit margin? What was the area of service? All of those images that you build somewhere else can be put inside a folder, and then you can access that folder with an interact and then display whenever you want. Yes, all the images inside the files that I just got, this images which I equated with the files can now be displayed. Okay, everyone, that is cool, right? Something different than what you might have seen online or what you can actually figure out. Okay, and this is not tough, guys. This is just what you can do with an IPy widget. Okay, if you read the documentation, you will have access to 10 times more idea than what I am doing right now. Okay, now let me show you something tricky, something more difficult with IPy widgets. Now, what is that? One of these things is date based filtering. What is date based filtering? Date based filtering is when you use a widget called a date picker. Can you see this widgets.date picker? If you go to the library and if you search for date picker, you will get a date picker also. And this is exactly what I have used. You don't have to remember anything. You can just copy and paste this and things would be fine. Okay, so there is this widgets called date picker. which has a description and which gives you all the calendar form of input which you see normally. Let's see if I can find a particular date. Okay, I click on this, I just go to any year, I select a month, and then I can select a particular date. Can you see this date got filtered? I can have this date. The similar thing I can do with the end date also. Okay, any end date or any start date. Can you see we could filter these out? Guys online, everyone. And the same thing that we did with an integer slider is what we can do here. We can access the value of these two widgets, we can access the values, and then I can do something. To show you a real life example, I just picked up a Kaggle population data. Okay, this is some data. If you click on this link, you will go to the Kaggle link, and then you can download this data from here. This is the data that I read into my Jupyter Notebook. Okay, once I read this notebook, one thing that I had to do is to convert my date column, this column, to into a pandas date time. Okay, how did I know that? I just checked the info of my date column. Okay, so if you check this out, the date column is actually an object, which is the string data type inside Python. So I just go ahead, I change it to a date time, and then I run this again, and now you see it has got converted into a date time object. Okay, because I'm working with dates, I need to definitely convert them, otherwise it would not, it would do a string matching, which is obviously wrong. Okay, I had to delete a few columns also just to make this entire thing reasonable. But the important thing for you to understand is how we build the next part of this. Okay, I assign a layout. The layout is basically the design. So if the layout was larger, this would appear larger, this entire widget would appear larger, the width would have been larger, the height would have been larger. I'm just setting it to basic. Start dater is a date picker widget. I just created two date picker widget classes, date pickers, which is start dater and end dater, and then I displayed them on my screen. Okay, so that they become a normal genuine Python widget. Then I try to create some function. Okay, I try to create some filter based on my value of what I know in pandas. Okay, so if I want to filter based on date, how would I do that? I would filter like this. I would get the value of the start dater, which is start dater dot value. I would convert them into a pandas date time column, pandas date time type, and then compare it with the date column of the time data frame. Okay, if you don't understand this, let me know. And with an and operator, I also put another condition which is smaller than end date. So what am I doing? I'm filtering my time data frame for something which is greater than the start date and smaller than the end date. So this gives me the filtering, the mechanism of how I'm trying to filter from my data frame based on a date value. The interesting thing here is that I can select that date value from a IPy widget. Is that understood by everyone? And you can see the start date is 2012. Okay, if I just run this again, you would see that now my start date would be in line with this. Can you see 2012, the 6th month? It has to be greater than that. So it has started with 2012, the 7th month. Okay, that's what it is doing. Just a second, I might have missed something. Oh, let me just because these are dynamics, so sometimes they cause a little trouble, but that's nothing to worry about. Okay, now you see I filtered my data frame, so it starts from 2018, the 3rd month, because my start date was the 2nd day of the 2nd month. So it has to obviously, because this is a monthly data, it starts from the 3rd month and it goes on till the last data point it has. Okay, so even though I've done 2020 here, I can actually change this value to 2018, and let's say I go till the 10th month and I filter this out. And once I do this, now you can see that it goes from the 2018 ka 3rd month to the 2018's 10th month. Okay, everyone understands this? Yes or no? Is this part clear, everyone? Okay, similar funda. Now what I'm doing is I'm putting all of this inside a function. Okay, This is the plotter function that I create, just a random function. I don't have to worry about anything. I just created a function. What does this function have? It has the exact same piece of code that I created earlier to test my function. I pasted it here. Once I pasted it here, I also create a visualization plot. What is that visualization plot? I initialize a matplotlib figure which has a size and a dots per inch. I initialize a time series plot which takes the date on the x-axis and the value of population on the y-axis, and then I do a plt.show. Okay, after creating this function, I do something even better, which is I display my start date and end date so that I can pick from this start and end date. And then I also use the interact manual. Now, what is the difference between interact that we know till now and the interact manual that we are just knowing? Interact manual changes only on the basis of this button click. When you do a button click, only then it changes, otherwise it won't change. Okay, so let's see. I run this. It gives me these three options. I pick up a start date. Let me go way back to 2010. Let me select the first month and the first day of the first month. And then let me go back to 2014 or 15, select the first month and then the first day of the first month. After selecting these two, I run interact. Once I run interact, let me just zoom out. You can see that I created a time series plot from 2010 to 2015, which was my filter condition. So I can now use these. Let me change from 2010 to 2008, select the first month, first day, and then run interact again. And now you see I have data from 2008 to 2015. And this becomes dynamic. Obviously, instead of interact manual, if you would have used interact, you would not have to click. It would automatically happen. Okay. So what is the basic idea, guys? The basic idea is you create a function which takes in input dynamic values from the widget, and then you display the widget and call the function with an interact. Once you do all of this, this is the ground root, the building point of any IPython widget to make it dynamic. Is that understood, guys online, everyone? Guys, yes? Okay, let's make it a little more complicated. Let's say I want to show the data frame, the filtered data frame, and my values as well, and as well as some plot. Okay, let's see. So I picked up the Netflix data set from Kaggle. You can obviously search on Google and get this Netflix data set as well. After getting this, you'll see I created something. Okay, let me first show you what my data frame looks like so you have a clue of what we are doing. This is my data frame. Okay, I have country, I have date added to Netflix website, I have release year, I have the cast of that particular show. I know if it's a movie, if it's a TV show, I know the title, I know the rating, I know all the other things. Okay, what is the duration, etc., etc. Okay, so this is my data frame. Now what I do is that I create a function. Now let me just show you how this function works. Okay, and if you understand this, you will be able to create any IPython widget. So I'm going to go a little slow on this, and you should understand why I'm doing this. Okay, so let me create a function first. What does this function do? This function takes three input parameters. The type parameter, so type can be all would include movies and TV shows. Otherwise the type could be TV show and all and movies. Then it takes country of origin, so was it created in United States, India, Malaysia, Japan, etc. Release year of that particular year. Why am I setting these default values? Because the first time I run my interact, the first time I run my IPy widget, I don't want it to throw error. So I'm setting some default values that it starts its work with. Okay, now I'm putting an if else condition in this function. If the type is equal to all, I want to do two things. One, I want to filter my data frame for the country of choice, which I get from my function. And I want to also filter for the release year that I'm setting from my function. And then I want to display that data frame. Simple display of that data frame that I just filtered out. Next, what I want to do is I want to check if the length of the data frame is greater than 1. Okay, obviously if these filters do not return any data, I don't want to do anything else. I just want the data to be displayed. But if the length is greater than 1, that means there is a lot of data. And because we are in the type all, what I want to now do is create a pie chart that gives me the distribution of number of movie shows and the number of TV shows, I mean movies and TV shows from this all. Okay, and you can see I initialized a figure, I initialized a pie chart, okay, and I did a plt.show. If this function is not true, if this condition is not true, if my type is not equal to all, I just want to display the data frame. Is this function clear to everyone? If my type is movie or TV show, then I just want to display the data frame. If my type is equal to all, I want to display my filtered data frame as well as a pie chart of the distribution between the number of movies and the number of TV shows. Is that understood by everyone, this function? For all of you who know pandas and Python, this would be super easy. If someone does not know, just let me know. Okay, so that is done. Now there is something interesting that we again do, is that I create 3 widgets, not just 1, 3 widgets. Why? Because there are 3 inputs to this function. Okay, and you can see I have named these widgets appropriately. One is the type selector, which is a drop down widget. This drop down widget, I'm giving it 3 parameters. What are the 3 parameters? I have the options, which is either TV show, movies and all. I give it a default value, which is all, obviously, and I give it a description, which will be the name of the widget when it is printed on the screen. And you can see the widget that I create here and the widget that appears here would be very similar. Okay, next, country selector, again, drop down widget. What would be the option? The option would be all the unique countries in my data frame. I just chose my country column and did a dot unique to get all the unique countries in my data frame and made that as options to my country selector, country widget. Okay, default country United States, and what is the description? The description is country. The third widget is the release selector, widgets dot drop down, again creating a drop down widget, getting the unique release years from the data frame, setting a default value of year 2019 and the description release year. Is that understood, guys? How did I make these 3 widgets, which are basically type, country and release selectors? Yes or no? Yes. After I do this, after I take a function and my 3 widgets, now I link this function to my widgets. And how do I do that? I use my interact. I pass my function name, which is filter data. If you can see this, filter data is the name of my function, filter data. Now I just copy this and paste it here, all the input parameters of my function, and I replace them with the corresponding widgets. Type selector for type, country selector for country, and release selector for release. Is that understood? I built a function which does a lot of things, which takes input and does something. I could have called this function by manually inputting these values, but I'm just changing the entire dynamics by creating widgets for these and then using these widgets interactively with the interact to look at data myself. Okay, understood everyone? So if you see now, if I select the type all and I select my country, I have this entire drop down. Okay, multiple combination of countries also, because there are a lot of unique countries, combination of countries. One web series might, or TV show or movie might not be from a single country, so it can be of multiple countries as well. I select my release year. It has a release year starting from 1999 to 2020. And once I do that, you can see my data got filtered. Okay, if you just check this out, let's say for India, I want to find out just TV shows. You see the entire data changed, and we all know Bard of Blood, Thakre, Delhi Crime, Typewriter, Chota Bheem, Little Things. All of these are TV series, okay, that we've seen. Let me filter for movies. Now I get the movies. Article 15, Watchmen, Malal, Oh Baby, Kabir Singh, Nobleman. All of these. Some of these movies we might not have seen, but the idea is I can filter this data dynamically. Can I see the movies released in 2020? Just one, Ghost Stories. Can I see all released in 2020? I see Jamtara and Ghost Stories. But something changed here. What did change? When I use this type is equal to all, I remember that inside my function, I also did a pie chart. So we may forget, but the code does not. And I also see a pie chart, which says because there are 2 values, there is a distribution of 50% of TV show and movies. Okay. If I change that to 2019, I see my data frame, I scroll down and I see in the end there is this pie chart which says that in 2019 India released 83 8.1% movies and 16.9% TV shows. Okay, so that's how I solve these problems. This is the basic idea of entire Jupyter widget. If you understand this, it's just a matter of time that you read through the documentation, you go through these things, link these things up, solve a few errors, and you have a dynamic presentation dashboard inside Jupyter. Okay, I also want to show you something more. We are running a little short on time, but I want to show you this. This is another data frame that I used. Okay, another data frame, another same fundamental. I create a function, it takes 3 inputs. There are 3 of these Python widgets. I merge them with my interact, and something better happens this time. This time, this is the data frame of the YouTube data frame. It has the title of the particular video, the channel title, the number of likes, dislikes, comment count, views, etc., etc. And I created a basic function which does this aggregation. And how do I work with this? I select, do I want to see channel title analysis? Yes. Aggregate column, I want to aggregate based on the views, and you see the plot changes. When I want to do a mean, the plot changes. When I want to do likes, the plot changes. When I want to do dislikes, the plot changes. So I can actually analyze 2 ways. One is the distribution, the proportion, for this case, the proportion of dislikes for each channel title. These are the top 10, 20 channels. So Set India has 2% dislikes. But if I see the likes proportion, I would see that Set India has worse, only 1% likes. What if I check the views? Okay, so Set India holds 3% of the views, but it holds 2% of the dislikes. So that can give me some kind of analysis. Okay, CNN, ARY Digital, the Young Turks, the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and all of this. And I can also see these parallel bar charts based on the number of views or the number of dislikes. Okay, if you change these, things change, and you can actually do a lot of analysis by just building this once and working with these widgets, dynamically filtering out data for 10 to 15 minutes, figuring out all possibilities. Okay, you all understand this? The idea is very simple. I did not change the vision of this. There is a function which takes some input, does some Python pandas processing, displays some output, can do multiple subplots, single subplot, can display data frames, etc., etc. Okay, there are 3 of these input widgets that pass values to this function, group distribution plotter, and then I use interact to map these functions, this function, the variables of these functions to my widgets, and then it gives me a full-fledged widget for analysis. Okay, understood everyone? And I also have the data frame to look at the bottom. Okay, everyone understands this? Yeah, cool. This is super simple, guys. Once you understand this, the root of it, you'll like it a lot, because this actually helps you in creating dynamic dashboards. Now what next? We could do something special, but just because we were on a YouTube video, I wanted to show you that you can actually play YouTube videos on your Jupyter Notebook. Most of you might know this, but a lot of people genuinely don't know this, and you can actually play YouTube videos. For example, you are working on some statistical concept and you want to display the understanding of that statistical concept. You can actually play a YouTube video with this piece of code. Okay, and if you ask where I found this piece of code, Jupyter widget. Okay, inside the Jupyter widget, just go for playing videos. Okay, just go IvyWidgets YouTube video, something like this. Okay, let me just search for the IPy docs. Leveraging Jupyter's display system, and you would see I just copy pasted this code. I did nothing special. I just copy pasted this code that you see here. I did not even make a single change to this. I copied it, I pasted it here exactly like it was. I just changed the YouTube video ka link. Okay, it has to be youtube.com/some key. I just changed that key and added this, and I can actually play this.
Thanks, it's really great to be here.
You can actually hear the volume. You can actually put full frame, and you have a YouTube video playing inside your Jupyter Notebook. That's as cool as it can get. Okay, so these were the things that I wanted to talk to you about. Now this is like the dashboarding mechanism, the entire thing that I just wanted to quickly summarize this in 40 to 45 minutes. Just to make sure that you have time with this notebook. You'll get these notebooks. You'll also have the video. Okay, you can share a feedback for the webinar. You have a webinar feedback form inside the chat box. Rohan, that's exactly what I said. You don't have to remember these codes in the long run. Actually, what happens is you start working with these, and day in, day out, you actually start knowing where to fetch it. Okay, like I know if I want to get a piece of code, what is the exact Google query that I search, which gives me the appropriate result. That's just the difference between an experienced person and the one who does it for the first time. That's all. Okay, it would come with experience, but I have this crazy, this is kind of forceful. I don't like people remembering code. I don't like giving people the code so that they can copy and paste. I want them to understand how to solve problems, not to remember to solve problems. Okay, that's just how I work. To get job, what should we learn, the code or the process? Maitra, if you're saying code, definitely no. The process is what matters. See, I have a very basic example. The guy who won Kaun Banega Crorepati with 1 crore rupees, he might not be an intelligent guy. He might be a storage device. You know, today's date, the data storage of data is so cheap that you can get anything off of the internet. Okay, like if you search Albert Einstein remembering things quote. Okay, I remember Albert Einstein saying something like this. There's the famous quote: never memorize something that you can look up. And that's exactly what I follow. If you want to memorize things, this is not like, I would not support that. It's your choice, but I would always want you to know how to, go to places where people have memorized it. Okay, where people have stored that, and just get it. The process is more important any day. Coding is a different thing. If you don't know what you want to do, any amount of coding, no matter what you know in code, it will never help you if you don't know what you are looking for, what direction you are going through. Okay, that's just uh, lame coding fundamentals. Okay, I also did some small analysis for all of you. This was a COVID-19. If we had more time, I could have showed you. This is the basic COVID data, which looks like this. It has a location, the continent, the number of new deaths, new cases, etc., based on a date column. And again, the same funda. I created a function. I created widgets that map to these function inputs, and I linked them with an interact. Once I did that, I can now select a particular case, for example, a continent. I can select, do I want to look at new cases? I can select the sum, and I can select if I want to look at a bar plot, I would look at a bar plot. If I want to look at a time series, I would look at a time series. If I want to look at a pie chart, I can look at a pie chart. Okay. Now these kind of analysis will actually save you a lot of time in the future. Okay. So you'll get these notebooks, guys. This notebook will be shared with all of you. Okay, I'll share it with the Ivy team so they can share it with all of you who registered for this, and you'll get a lot of information from this notebook. If you have any confusion, any doubts, any queries, just send an email with your query to info@ivyproschool.com, and I'll make sure I answer it within 2 days or less. Okay, because I'm expecting to receive a lot of queries, so I'll make sure I answer them as quickly as possible. I hope you like this webinar. There was a lot of information that I shared. It went a little too fast, but you have this video and you can just go through it again and again. Okay, so any doubts that I can help you with, guys online? Anything about IPy widgets that you want to understand? And definitely you can send the query online, okay, like to us on email. You don't have to actually type it around here and ask. But that was it for this entire session. I hope you all had a great time. I really love talking about Python widgets because they have actually, saved me so much time and made me so presentable. The people who do data analysis with Excel or Tableau, they are very quick. But we Python programmers, we coders, we take a lot of time because we have to code everything out. We have to filter conditions. We have to do a lot of things. Why not we use the leverage of our coding skills to create a generalized function and then do that dynamically? Okay, you might take more time to build that function initially, but once you are done, you will be completely independent of any other tool. Your Jupyter Notebook will be your one-stop location for any analysis that you want to do. Okay, that's it from my side, guys. Hope you all had a great time. We'll see you sometime soon in some other webinar, in some class. Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you so much.